Welcome back to another Queer Money follow-up. This is episode 11, and we have a question for you. Do you want to quit your job? Have you ever thought, I want to take this job and shove it? Americans think that so often. There's a song about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And actually, when we recorded episode 11 of the Queer Money podcast, when we interviewed Brian Thompson of BT Financial, at that point, it was 2016, 80% of 20-year-olds who were working, had a W-2, claimed that they wanted to quit their job for something else.
Yikes, 80%.
Yikes. So here are allegedly a whole bunch of people who, many of whom just graduated college, were already thinking about, like, I got to get out of here. This isn't working. And no doubt, my guess is that as people get older and they find the job or the career that they love, they stay in that. And they don't necessarily, the report rate for wanting to bounce isn't so high. But it seems to me to be pretty exceptional, that 80%. And what's also interesting is the last year that the information was collected was for 2019. CNBC reported last January 2020 that 2019 was the year that Americans quit their jobs the most in recorded history. So I thought, wow, all these people are just looking to bounce from their jobs. So Queer Money episode number 11 was titled 4 Keys to Winning the Midlife Career Change. And we interviewed Brian Thompson of BT Financial because he had recently just transitioned from being a tax attorney, which is hard in and of itself, to becoming a certified financial planner. His mother ran into some financial challenges, we'll say, to keep it brief, and he started to do a lot of research and got really fascinated with finance and personal finance. And so he decided, hey, being a tax attorney isn't challenging enough. I'm going to go become a certified financial planner and help people invest and manage their money. So we befriended Brian on Twitter and actually have become friends with him and met with him several times in real life. But we talked about what steps that he took to help to say, like, mid-career, here he is in his 30s saying, I'm going to bounce and go try something else. And it was very, very timely because we interviewed him about a month after I quit working for a W-2. And it was the first, that was a month long. So it was the longest duration that I went without actually having an employer over my head to tell me what to do and when I could go home and when I had to be at work.
I was still there to tell him what to do.
He was. But I like it when you boss me around.
Right.
And so it was kind of timely because there were a lot of similarities to our story and how Brian prepared for leaving, as well as how I prepared for leaving my W-2. And then it wasn't long after that David quit to start working for our business full time. And, go ahead and check out Queer Money episode number 11 to get those 4 tips. They're very valuable. But what I wanted to talk about today, it's a topic that David and I talk about a lot, and that was the psychological and spiritual preparation for making that kind of a change, or whether it's a career change or anything monumental. Leaving a job is hard enough. Leaving an entire industry is even more challenging. But there are many ways, many kinds of transitions that we can go through in life. And I think oftentimes we had a lot of discussion in this particular interview about how Brian prepared, and he was methodical and he was strategic, and this wasn't quick. This was actually several years in the making. And then we bumped that up against how a lot of people say, well, you're just lucky. All these things are handed to you.
Right.
These circumstances just came your way. And we talked about, the Seneca quote that I'm gonna ad lib here, or edit a little bit, wherein preparation, or actually luck is really preparation meeting opportunity. And we've talked about that a lot on our Queer Money podcast and amongst ourselves, how lots of people think that we personally or people who reach a certain level of success are oftentimes just lucky. And now I'll admit there is some synchronicity and some coincidences that happen, but people don't actually give enough gravitas to the preparation that's required for those opportunities or those coincidences that come along.
Yeah, I really think when I think about this whole idea of luck as preparedness meeting opportunity, I think about you're going to tell me who the author of the book is, Outliers. And
Oh, shit. It's,
and he kind of came up with this idea that people who are really successful have put in their time, their 10,000. He says about 10,000 hours, and a lot of people talk about like the Beatles being the best group that has ever existed, and the success that they had, and how they just blew up all of a sudden. But the reality is, if you go back and look, the Beatles as a group, and this was prior to who joined them last. I think it was Ringo Starr joined them last.
I think so.
But prior to Ringo Starr joining them, they worked at a nightclub in Berlin where they performed 3 to 4 hours a night, 7 nights a week for over 10 months. They just performed
years,
and performed and performed. I don't think it was a full year. But you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But the thing, what's interesting about that, if you look at that, they put in as a collective group thousands and thousands and thousands of hours performing, perfecting not only how they sung, how they performed in front of a crowd, how they wrote their songs, how they played their instruments. They became perfect to a certain degree before they had all of their success. But everybody talks about how all of a sudden they blew up in 1964 and they came out of nowhere. Well, the reality is they put in these thousands of hours of work. And some people do say that about us. I do find it interesting. You guys, oh, you guys are so lucky. You guys are on Good Morning America. You guys are on the cover of CNBC. But how did this happen? You just kind of all of a sudden
came out of nowhere.
Right. But look, we're on episode 247 or 246 this week, I think. No, 244 of the Queer Money Podcast. We've been doing our podcast for almost 5 years. We've been blogging for 6 years. So when you see these kinds of things happening to us, it's because we have been crafting and crafting and crafting and crafting. And that's kind of what Brian was really talking about. Do the work, get prepared, then take the leap to find the job that you want.
Yeah, and the leap is always scary, but the more preparation, the more thought you put into it, the more strategy you have behind it, the easier that leap is, and the more successful you're likely to be. We also talked about in this episode how success is a series of little habits repeated over time, and then tacking when necessary. When something isn't necessarily working, people oftentimes want to tell you that in order to achieve this, that, or the other thing, you need to do this, that, or the other thing,
right,
to get to that end goal. Sometimes that doesn't actually replicate for some people. We've noticed this in our own business. We're in several courses of our own, and we're people who make several $100,000 a month, several $1 million a year, tell us exactly what they've done to grow their blog, sell their courses, grow their podcast, all sorts of things. And we've implemented those prescriptions to a T, and it doesn't always materialize with the same results. So you've got to tack from time to time, because not everything is explicitly replicable, right? There are some nuances based on the different niches and your character and your the work and effort you put in, the market that you're targeting, the products and services that you provide. Oftentimes you kind of modify that and sort of create your own recipe. But it is sort of that series of deliberate habits over time. And I think at one point we had mentioned on that episode that we had gone like 10 days in a row waking up at 4:30 a.m. At one point, because we both had W-2 jobs while we were building our Debt-Free Guys and Queer Money platforms. And so we were waking up early in the morning to do work, going to our W-2s during the day for 8 to 10 hours a day, and then going home and working in the evenings and on weekends trying to grow our business.
Right. When I think about that whole idea of success as little habits repeated over and over and over again over time, I kind of think about this time of the year when people head off to the gym, right? Or they head off on a wellness path, and they want to start feeling better, and they want to start looking better. And most of it is they want to look better, right? They want to lose that weight. I think especially because of COVID, we all would like to lose, I'd like to lose about 15 pounds.
Well, I have COVID-19 to lose.
Right. But I think that you have, it's so funny how so many people give up after 2 or 3 weeks because they expect these extraordinary results, but they want to be able to work out for a month or 3 weeks and look like the guy who's been in the gym 4, 5, 6 days a week that has been doing it for 2 or 3 years, right? And they don't see a big enough change quickly enough, so they give up. And so then they start repeating another habit, but they only do it for a very short time period. And they don't like the results, so they switch to another habit, and then another habit, another habit. And one of the quotes that I mentioned in this show is one that I think that you and I stick by a lot, and that's this idea: if you're not willing to risk doing something out of the ordinary, you can't expect something extraordinary. And that's a quote from Jim Rohn. And that really, that's the thing, is a lot of people want to be able to hop on Instagram, post a couple of pictures, have 100,000 followers, and all of a sudden,
I'm an influencer.
Right. All of a sudden, they're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars
They're
a
like,
year.
well, that guy just skateboarded listening to Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, and now he's, rolling in the dough.
Right.
Why can't that happen to me?
And it does happen from time to time. But the reality is it's so infrequent. It's kind of like being struck by lightning or winning the lottery. These are the kinds of things that happen 1 in a million chances, right? So would you rather take your chance and do something once to try to get the win, or would you rather repeat a series of tasks over and over and over again with some more secure or certainty that you will get a result?
Well, and I think that's where the confusion comes in. I think because, you see stories like the guy in the skateboard and the ocean spray playing, singing, lip syncing to Dreams, and you think, well, that guy did it. There's got to be something that I can do to just be lucky, to just get somebody's attention and really just, become the influencer that everybody wants to be these days.
Maybe if you posted YouTube video live every single day for day after day, which, by the way, we're on day 11 now.
We're on day 11, yeah. I'm pretty impressed with myself. But people get confused because they think that's how you achieve success, and those anomalies are out there. But if you focus on what the media tells you or portrays to you, you think that that's the only way to get there. And I think it's also kind of distilled down the effort that it takes to become successful, because I think, unfortunately, you don't always see the work that artists and celebrities or any definition of success, what the amount of work they've had to put in to get to that point where you see them on TV or you see them in the movies, or they suddenly become a household name, and you think, well, geez, they couldn't have done all that much to get there. But I mean, I think people forget that it was only a few years ago that Elon Musk was sleeping on the floor in an office,
right,
because he couldn't afford to pay rent. And not that you have to struggle that hard, but that's just an extreme example of somebody who's gone from somewhat rags to riches.
It's interesting you bring up that. So Elon Musk, now the richest man in the world, slept for months on the floor in his office because he didn't want or could not afford to have an apartment. He would rather invest the money into his business. And right now, he has sold all of his real estate. He doesn't own any real estate anymore. He wants to get rid of all that because it's too distracting. He wants to focus on his businesses. And then I think about the second richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos. At one time, Jeff Bezos did this same thing where he would sleep overnight in his office. And if you look back at some of those original pictures, Jeff Bezos literally had an office in a strip mall where he and his employees, he himself, would pack books into boxes, take them down to the post office so that they could get sent out, right? And now he's a billionaire, and it's because, as Jim Rohn said, he did something a little out of the ordinary, so in the hopes that he would end up having something extraordinary. Now,
right.
Again, maybe that's not your desire is to be a billionaire, but
or a business owner, or or an influencer. They're all different kinds of success.
right.
Yeah.
It's if you're not getting the results doing the same thing over and over and over again that you're doing right now, maybe it's time to think about doing something different, so that you can get a different result.
Well, I think we see this in as a society. We kind of have all this sort of group think that this is there's this one path,
right.
and there's this one path, and if it doesn't work, either I don't know how to do it, or I can't do it, or or this path isn't right. And I think that we see that exemplified in all the different fad diets that come and go.
Yeah.
First, it's the South Beach diet. Then it's the Atkins diet. Then it's I don't know. Then it's the Whole Foods diet. I don't know, whatever. There are all these different diets, and people are like, I just haven't discovered the right diet. But you're just kind of following what everybody else is doing. And if you look around, is America getting skinnier?
No, clearly
not. So maybe stop. Maybe we need to stop kind of hopping along the group think wagon, figuring out what's actually right for us. And sometimes that might be something completely contrary to what everybody else is doing. And I think we can see that with successful people. We can see that in many different ways.
Yeah, it's kind of the tortoise and the hare mentality too, right? And everyone wants to do it quickly. They want the quick success. They want the get rich quick thing. They want the diet, the fastest diet to get them to where they want. But it's I just go back to this quote over and over and over again, the Gandhi quote of what you think is what you say is what you do is what it's your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your destiny. And I look back to the episodes that we were starting off with when we started off with Queer Money, and the people that we were interviewing, Reed Waterer, and how he took a job as a runner in 2 different situations in Hollywood so that he could get access to and learn about, rather than saying, I would only take a job that is this level job making this amount of money. And he ended up making more progress than all of his counterparts that he went to school with. And then I think about other people who were going after things. This example of Brian, he took the time to study and learn. Was this something that I wanted to do before he jumped ship to another career, made this switch? And so many of us want that instant. I want the success, right? I'm going to jump to a job and it's going to all of a sudden pay me $150,000 a year, and all my problems are going to get taken care of.
Yeah, well, I think another great example of a Queer Money guest who sort of exemplifies this is Dominique Jackson, who was that 77?
73.
73, episode 73 that she came on. I mean, here she was living in Tobago and knew that she couldn't stay there. She had to leave for a myriad of reasons, and you can hear that on episode 73 of the Queer Money podcast. Then she came to the United States, and that was an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And until she finally got into the modeling industry, and she just had the poise and charisma that she was able to go from modeling and into acting. But it was all hard work. And for a lot of folks, the first time that they saw her was on
Slay.
On Slay.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, we just came out of nowhere. You must have just been discovered, walking down the street by Walgreens, and some
right.
some photographer just discovered you, and now you're a model. And it's like, that's not how it works. She worked hard and long and had lots of failures. And on that episode, she talks about all the debt that she and her boyfriends, and then eventually her husband, got into and then had to get out of.
Right. And she also talked about how many times she did free modeling jobs so that she would get noticed, so that she would be in front of the decision makers, the people who were actually going out there and saying, I'm looking for a runway model. And so she would do free runway shows to eventually get to that point. And many people are like, there's no fucking way I'm going to do anything for free. I need to get paid.
I am too good for this.
Right. But then they don't get noticed. Well, maybe they don't get noticed because they're not. I'm not saying go out and do everything for free, but I'm saying that sometimes there are some tactics to learn something by doing something for a lower cost or doing something for free, so that you get access to the right people, or you get access to the right audience, so that you can learn something that you can turn into something bigger.
We have a very popular article on debtfreeguys.com called "There's No Job Beneath You," and the whole premise of that is that one, you're ultimately you're not too good for any job, right? Very often we get to this point where we're like, this is just, I'm just too good for this. But also the other point of that particular article is sometimes the job that you're currently in, or what you're currently doing, isn't what you want, and it's not as gratifying as you would like it to be, and it's certainly not paying you what you want. But that can be sort of the seed that helps launch your career. You can use that money or that experience, use that struggle to help fuel getting you on that path of what you actually eventually want to do.
Right.
I mean, all the time that we were in, for the duration that we were building Debt Free Guys in the Queer Money podcast, and simultaneously working for a W-2, we, working for the W-2 wasn't what we wanted. We didn't want to be there, and having to go in there every day and sit in a cubicle wasn't fun. Having to be sitting in helping to build somebody else's dream for 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, wasn't fun. But we were able to figure out how to use that to helping to build the platform that we got us to a point where we could both quit our jobs so that we can focus full time on this together, and then ultimately have the life that we've wanted to have, where we are geo-liberated and can live and work from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So if you haven't figured it out, we really enjoyed this episode with Brian Thompson.
It was
fun. Very inspiring, and
we laughed a lot.
He provided some very tactical steps on how to quit your job. So go ahead. We encourage you to please listen to episode 11 of the Queer Money podcast to get those 4 tips. And then we want to also thank you for listening to another episode of Queer Money Follow-Up. We're having a lot of fun with these. And here's your Queer Money takeaway from this particular episode. Please subscribe to the Queer Money podcast at debtfreeguys.com/QM. And also, please give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel. That really helps us a lot. And continue the conversation in the comments below or in the Queer Money Facebook group. We want to know if you want to quit your job, and then if you do want to quit your job, what is your plan to do that? How are you going to get out of there? What is it you're striving for? And how can those who are engaging in the community, how can they possibly support you in any way, shape, or form? So that's all we have for today. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you.